Hey guys, Josh Olfert back with another video, and today we're going to talk about a very counterintuitive but 100% logical way of how to think like an investor. So, debt. Everybody in your life, from your teachers to your parents to your friends to everyone around you, has taught you that debt is this horrible word. Stay away from debt. Do not touch debt. But maybe if we start to think like an investor, we can find ways to incorporate debt. Maybe there's wise ways to use debt. But in some ways, debt can actually be an incredible thing. If we use it to our advantage, it can actually catapult us forward to places that we wouldn't have been able to get to just on our own. That's why I am personally $128,000 in debt, and maybe even more in the future. Now, not all debt I would encourage. There's a lot of debt that I would absolutely advise everybody stay away from. And this kind of debt is consumption debt. Consumption debt is the kind of debt that you take on when you're gonna buy something that doesn't last. For instance, let's say you wanna buy clothing and go on a shopping spree. You feel like your stuff's getting a little old and you wanna go to the nicest clothing store and put it all on a credit card. That is consumption because clothes don't last. Enough trips to the dryer and your clothes will all be toast anyways. Now, if you want to go out and take a fancy vacation, sure, we can argue, yeah, you get the experience, maybe you get some new perspective, but at the end of the day, you've consumed, and future you is gonna have to pay present you. The person in the future that's gonna have to go earn the money is gonna be paying for something they don't really get in the present. This is the problem with debt, is it's really a penalty or it's a charge against your future self. And the hard thing about paying off of debt is you've already enjoyed it in the past. You've already gone through the enjoyment of having the trip, doing the shopping spree, buying the new thing, but now you're paying for it afterwards. And that is a mentally taxing thing. It's mentally taxing to go into work each day to pay for enjoyment you had a year ago. But there's some things that can even amplify this even more and make it even worse. Obviously, things like high interest debt. When you take on debt, you're literally renting money from someone else. You are renting someone else's money for a period of time. And depending on where you're renting it from, the price of the rent might be higher. For instance, a credit card charges 18 to 20, maybe even 25%. And what that means is when you're making a purchase, you're gonna owe that plus an additional 25%. So the higher the rate on the debt, the worse the debt is. And if you think credit cards are bad, the worst end of the spectrum is something like a payday loan, where they know you're desperate. They know all you need to do is bridge that gap between now and payday. So they're gonna charge you something like an annual rate of 120%. So all of this to say is that using debt to fuel consumption and things that aren't going to have lasting, lifelong value for you is probably a horrible idea. And it's right that people told you to stay away from that. Now, on the other hand, there might be a way to use debt to push us forward, to make financial progress. And that might seem weird because you think debt is something that holds you back. It's something that you're paying for. How do you make progress by using debt? But the reality is there is some types of debt that are fantastic. And the fantastic types of debt is any debt that allows you to buy an asset or accumulate something that will pay you. For instance, some great examples of this would be the fact that I own a rental property. When I tell you that I'm $128,000 in debt, this is almost exclusively mortgage debt. It's property debt. I have gone to the bank and I'm renting out their money so I can own an asset like a home that's going to actually pay me every month. And the numbers break down like this. I receive about $1,800 to $1,900 in rent every month, and only $700 of that goes to paying down the mortgage. So we have things like utilities and taxes and all these other expenses, but when we look at it, I'm making $1,900 off the property, paying $700 in debt, and I have, $1,100 to $1,200 left over every month to take care of the bills and have some for myself. So we talked about how hard it is, how taxing it is mentally in order to pay for something now that you've already enjoyed in the past. But good debt is really the reverse. You're paying for something now that you're going to enjoy well into the future. And that's the difference between good debt and bad debt. Bad debt is paying for past enjoyment, and good debt is really just paying your dues for future enjoyment. And the crazy thing, for instance, on this property is that the property value will appreciate over time. The tenants who live in the property will pay the debt down. Every single month, there's leftover cash flow. There's all these different ways that taking on that debt actually added to my lifestyle and added to my ability to move forward. When you're starting a business or owning a business, almost all great businesses utilize good debt. What they're trying to do is take on a debt to expand. Let's say, you own a coffee shop and you want to expand. Maybe you want to add new locations. It's hard to just come up with the cash to do that on your own. So you go and you get a loan, and now you pay rent on the money. But here's the thing, just like on a rental property where you have tenants paying the mortgage and paying the debt for you, in a business, you expand and have new customers, and those new customers pay the debt for you. So good debt is debt where you are going to get paid, or you're going to have someone else pay the interest and pay it for you. Great businesses all use leverage. That's really what investing is. We're gonna talk a ton about investing. Investing is the process of big businesses going to the public to try to raise money, to try to take on leverage so that they can grow and expand and provide new products and services to new people. So the reality of the situation is there are far more fantastic uses of debt than you may realize. Debt can be used in incredible ways. My biggest weakness as an investor and probably a business person is that I don't utilize enough debt. I should probably be $500,000 in debt, because if I had more good debt, that means that I'm using more leverage. I am trying to find ways to grow faster, grow more exponentially with somebody else's money, instead of just using the money that I've accumulated. So anyways, I think the main takeaway here is we have to understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. We have to look at things like the interest rate. If the interest rate's high, it's likely gonna be bad debt. The higher the interest, the worse the debt gets. Are we using the debt to buy something that will still be here a year from now? Or are we using the debt to fuel consumption, something that we'll never see again? And lastly, good debt is debt that you can have someone else pay for. If your customers or your tenants pay for the debt, that makes it even better debt. So thank you so much for watching, guys. If you learned anything at all, if you enjoy these videos, please hit that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more videos just like this one every single week. Until next time.